Hello. Welcome everyone to the WithSecure Supply Chain webinar series. My name is Suki Ng. I'm the solution consultant at WithSecure. Digital supply chain threats are high on the security agenda in 2022. And based on Salesforce research, the third-party security management is a top concern for IT leaders this year. We are honored to have three experts discuss this topic with us today. So first, we have Antti Tomi, who is the principal security consultant based in Tokyo. Antti's focus area include vulnerability testing in complex and challenging environments. Welcome.
Hello, everyone. Nice to meet you.
And then we have Dimitri Victorov, Head of Product and Technology Cloud Protection, who based in Finland. He held different roles in R&D, product management, and technology office, and is currently leading the product development of cloud protection for Salesforce. So everyone call him Dima. Welcome, Dima.
Yeah, thank you, Suki. Hello, everyone.
And then we have Bangga Bayani, who is the Salesforce technical lead, who based in Malaysia. Bangga is a skilled Salesforce developer and consultant with multiple projects developed for customers around US, UK, and the APAC region. Welcome.
Thank you, Suki. Nice to meet everyone.
So in this webinar, our experts draw on decades of experience working with Salesforce environments to insight on securing your Salesforce third-party integrations against supply chain threats. In the following, we are going to discuss a few questions related to the security of third-party integration in Salesforce. There will be some related polls for all the audience to participate in, so we can also explore the results together. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them down in the question box. I will bring them up in the end of the presentation, and we will try to go through as many questions as possible. All right. Let's begin with the first poll and questions. We will discuss the question first and see the poll result right after each question. So the first question will be, we will move to the discussion questions. What does a supply chain mean to you? And how does the supply chain differ if you are using Salesforce? Maybe let's have Dima to start with.
Yeah, thank you, Suki. It's a very good question. And digital supply chain threats is really big, if not the biggest concern for the organizations. It's been in the news for apparently last 2 years. And according to the ENISA threat landscape for supply chain attack report published at least not a longer while, it is estimated that more than 60% of those attacks exploited vulnerabilities in the third-party suppliers code. Unfortunately, cloud platforms and applications such as Salesforce are not really immune to these threats. Salesforce even at least admitted that they also investigated those vulnerabilities related to the Log4j. Obviously, cloud service providers like Salesforce and others, they do a great job to keep their infrastructure and software secure. However, the third-party security management is one of those shared cloud security responsibilities which are divided between the customer and the cloud platform. So the customers themselves, they need to make sure that they verify their supply chain and they make sure that the supply chain is secure. So those organizations, especially who are building their own services or customizing workflows with the third-party integrations or code coming from other suppliers. So the digital supply chain can be actually quite long. And if suppliers are using code and tools from other suppliers, that actually creates the problem even bigger. So which means that the security in general will be as strong as the weakest point in the chain.
Right, so Bangga, do you agree with what Dima saying and what the Antti think about it as well?
Yeah, I totally agree with Dima. When you think about the supply chain, it actually is a chain of different organizations integrating together. because as we see, or when we talk about Salesforce platform specifically, we cannot invent or reinvent or develop any everything. There are a lot of in market. There are a lot of best in market tools to do some good automation for certain functionalities. Let's say, for example, if you want some professional services application, that there are different vendors providing you PSA and making your life easier, right? So some of the other places we become dependent on these third-party applications, which is good. They are helping us. But when we think about our own security and when we are thinking about any of these third-party applications, the first question in your mind should be, is the vendor trusted? In terms of security, in terms of their product over there. So when you think in that way, definitely you should think about checking about their reviews, checking about their security reports about their product, how they are caring about their product. So these all things definitely matter in like a third party integrations with Salesforce.
Yeah. So I guess I'll continue from there. I definitely agree with what Pankaj and Dima are saying, but from my point of view, being a security consultant who kind of evaluates and tests the security of our client solutions, what we often get asked is to like, okay, can you evaluate how big of a risk are like third parties to our environment? But usually, basically, based on the security assessments that we do for our clients, in many cases, they kind of forget that they are also part of the supply chain themselves. So before starting to wonder, like, okay, what about these like third-party applications? How secure are they? A lot of our clients might not have like thoroughly performed the security testing for their environment first. So that's usually where I would, recommend starting from, because you are also part of the supply chain yourself. And even if you don't consider yourself like kind of part of the supply chain in the traditional sense, you should also think about the fact that towards your clients, your customers, you are handling their data, you're processing their data, and so on. So from their point of view, you are also part of the supply chain, and it would be not very good for you to be the weakest link. So as with any other system and any other supply chain, start with securing what you can control, and then after that, I would definitely get into the kind of the vendor security maturity and vendor assessment type of areas to make sure that everything, all the partners, all the applications that you use or integrate with your environment are secure.
Great. Thanks for the answer. So let's see the poll results. Let's check how many third-party integrations usually audience has connected to the Salesforce. Right. Wow, so like most of the people, actually half of the people, they don't know, but another majority is 3 to 10. So it's actually pretty much of the third-party integrations, I would say. So what do you think about this, Antti?
So yeah, within the environments that I've encountered personally, the environments and organizations that our customer use, it's very common to often have at least 1 or 2 or 3 internal integrations. So you would have something like single sign-on, hopefully available, something like Active Directory or Azure AD. You would often have integrations with data analytics platforms, and then also sometimes custom integrations for other like internal components. But in addition to that, what I personally have seen a lot is that there are also loads of connected apps in use, and not all of them might have been thoroughly vetted. And what's also reasonably common is that there are some kind of integrations, let's say Outlook integrations or Gmail integrations that are enabled, even though they are not necessarily in use. And one of the things that we do recommend for most of our clients is to at least be aware of what integrations you are using, what are enabled, and try to kind of minimize the attack surface by at least disabling or removing the ones that you're not actively using, because that helps kind of narrow down the supply chain a bit, like the areas through which you could be attacked. That's what I usually see. But what about you guys, Tima and Pankaj?
Yeah, the results are actually quite interesting, especially that more than half of respondents, or at least I don't know how many, at least really answered that poll, but 50% or more than 50% answered I don't know. And that might actually illustrate the problem that you don't know whether you have the supply chain or if you have, so you probably don't even understand how long it is. So this is what I'm at least surprised with the results. I'm not surprised that, yes, quite many have actually even way more than 10, which is actually for very big Salesforce environment is the case. But I would rather even try to dig deeper at least for those respondents who said that I don't know. This is definitely the first step to evaluate your environment and make sure that you really actually see who is actually connected to your precious data.
Yeah, really agree. Very interesting results. So let's move to the next questions. Maybe we release the next poll first.
Oh, did Pankaj have any comments on the previous question though? What's your view on the amount of integrations that you usually see?
Yeah, well, I can relate my past experience with the majority of answer that I don't know. It happens quite common, based on where you are involved in the project or where you are involved in your company. It depends. But at the same time, it's important to have those all things documented somewhere so that if this kind of question is raised, let's say the people who have answered this question, they might go back and maybe in the higher hierarchy, they might ask this, do we have answer for this? They should be able to share this documentation because it's important to know what our organization is interacting with. Again, coming back to the point of security, you never know from where the threat could hit you.
Yeah. And to be honest, I do agree in the sense that if I were asked okay, how many integrations do you have, you would have to first define integration first. Are we talking about SSO? Are we talking about built-in integrations? Are we talking about custom Apex classes? Are we talking about all of that? So definitely it is also a very a question that where you are very likely to say I'm not quite sure. Definitely agree with what you said there, Pankaj.
Interesting. So let's see the second questions. So how do you see the attack surface in Salesforce deployment, and what should you be looking at? Maybe Pankaj can share some opinion as a Salesforce developer.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about Salesforce development and deployments, or maybe when you think of just a Salesforce thing, it's not just a software. It is a platform that you are building your automation on. You are building your organization's different business processes on, and definitely most of the organization, they have their important data inside Salesforce. So when we say it's a platform, it becomes your responsibility to develop, but at the same time to develop securely. So if it is not developed, with the security mindset, while developing, you might be opening a lot of smaller loopholes. You might be leaving security gaps there. So eventually, the more you develop, the more you have surface to be vulnerable for any attack.
Right. So what does Auntie think? Any intake on these questions?
So to basically regarding the attack surface, they're from a general security testers or security consultants point of view, when you have a cloud platform, whether it be AWS, Azure, Salesforce, or whatever it is, basically you have both the platform level features and functionalities, and then you have everything that's custom on top of it. And the way I would start to kind of peel the onion is that first, the most important layer is the outer layer, the internet-facing parts. And when it's a cloud-based platform such as Salesforce, there are parts of the Salesforce platform itself that are, you basically cannot restrict thoroughly, at least. And then anything that is facing the internet, let's say your especially your experience cloud sites, any integrations that are basically available through the internet. But also, if you look at just the login pages, then one of the common things that we suggest to our clients is to, at least for the administrator profiles, please set some IP address restrictions so that you require at least administrator profiles logging through their corporate VPN or some similar solution. Kind of, the internet layer is definitely very important. Other than that, depending quite a bit on the organization, we often kind of also suggest at least somewhat thinking about how to organize all the sharing rules in your organization, how to which kinds of permissions to grant to each user profile or user persona. Because let's say if a user's account does get cracked, someone uses the same password for an external service, and that turns out that those credentials also work for the Salesforce environment, then what all data are those people able to access? Is it the whole organization, regardless of the country, regardless of the region, regardless of the business unit, or is it at least mostly locked down so that you can kind of contain the attack, and so on? So going back to the question of how do I see the attack surface in Salesforce deployments? Well, basically locking down all the internet-facing features, falling back to secure defaults is very important. And of course, if you compare to something like AWS, which is completely infrastructure as a service, and of course this kind of a PaaS platform is slightly smaller from an attack surface point of view, but equally important.
Wow, good to know. Thank you so much for the answers. And maybe Dima can also share a bit based on the Salesforce product knowledge. I know that you are actually leading the cloud protection for Salesforce. So what do you see that attack surface on Salesforce related to the product?
Yeah, I want to at least reflect on what Antti actually said, on reflecting on the poll results. So it's indeed you need to be clear about what integrations you mean on the supply chain. But this is also a tricky part, because even if you use the built-in features in the Salesforce platform, you are still probably taking some third-party components. As an example, which might be actually interesting for Salesforce developers, Salesforce introduced the feature probably not a long while called Salesforce Functions, which actually lets you to extend the platform with custom elastically scalable business logic, which would be similar to maybe like AWS or Azure capabilities. So you implement the function and it will run, but it will not run within the Salesforce platform, but it would be apparently run in the other cloud environment. But the thing is that when you implement that function, you will actually use the programming language such as Java or JavaScript. And then you will inherently take the third-party components, which will be coming probably as an open source components or maybe as a proprietary software. And this is actually, again, your supply chain. So you will be taking software components from somebody else. And again, as was seen with the SolarWinds and Log4j hacks, the adversary might attack you through the compromised organization, which is basically supplying these components for your specific custom integration. Needless to say that, of course, you can customize a Salesforce platform by installing applications from AppExchange. You can use open source components in the community portals. You can use even DevOps tools, which are actually also connecting to your Salesforce organization, some DevOps tools based on the other software and tools. So again, you might actually get pretty long supply chain, and you really need to assess everything interconnected, and then even further dependencies in the tools that are connected to the Salesforce environment. And then, like I said, that if you don't even use the third party or external systems, even using the internal Salesforce capabilities will expose you also to the supply chain.
Thanks.
I would like to highlight that there's a very good comment over here in the chat, that it's not only the integrations and apps, it's also the human factor by Salvatore Saia. So that's a very good point. And I guess, Dima, I assume you might have something to comment on that regarding the attack surface from the users and the human factor, considering what you're working on.
Yes, absolutely. Recently, at least, reading some nice, interesting recommendation in the supply chain attack. I remember NSA actually published a good recommendation for the organizations building software solutions, and they actually coined this term called compromised engineers. or compromised DevOps engineers, which means that you might actually, like engineer has a human being who might be actually compromised either through the account compromised, or maybe that engineer might be actually disgruntled employee who is just like planning the revenge. And then obviously quite often the developers or engineers, they have privileged kind of access to your cloud environments. And that actually exposes you also to a risk that the engineer will run either vulnerable or malicious application, and that application will spread the malware through your cloud environment.
Wow, it seems to be such a risk. So let's check the poll result and we can also discuss from there. Right. So actually, most of the audience have both internal and external parties to maintain their Salesforce organizations. So, Bangai, what do you think about this? Because I know you are also your daily job, maybe also maintaining different Salesforce organization or developing a project on it. What do you think about these results?
Yeah, I mean, the result looks like, quite relevant to today's way of working. Most of the companies, they have these kind of mixed teams. Like the in-house team is basically to support and also be ready for some smaller things. But when they talk about something important to develop and maybe like a small quick project, hiring and those kind of things, making a team and onboarding them is a long task. So the easier way is to have some external people to help on. And maybe as the Salesforce platform is growing, there is demand for skilled things on each different aspects of cloud, and then you will more trust the skilled person to do the job. And if we think about this thing that when we have both of people, both side of people working inside and the external, you should also at the same time think about would it be something to think about securing your organization, because every different developer, they have different style of working, the different mindset of developing things. But how you can make sure that the development your development on your Salesforce platform is secured. You should have certain kind of policies around your development process, so that you have some good review process around the development that is being done in both the teams, in-house and also externally. And ideally, they should share the information of what they are developing and in which way. Why I am saying this is basically this is from the real life experiences around when we start developing certain things, and importantly, as Auntie mentioned, when our platform is talking externally on the internet, when we have public sites, and when we develop something custom there are high chances that we become vulnerable over there. So it is important to place the policies in the right way to handle both teams.
Right. Thanks, Banga. Considering time, we will need to move to the next questions. So we can also release the poetry at the same time. So the next question will be, how much should you trust the cloud platform? So Auntie, based on your consulting experience, what do you think how much you should trust?
This is a very tricky discussion topic, and I will have to be careful about how I put my words. But basically, no matter what technology you choose, whether it's AWS, whether it's Azure, whether it's something non-cloud, whether it's Salesforce, you always do have to take into account the risk that, okay, there might be vulnerabilities on the vendor side. There might be vulnerabilities in the platform. That is always a possibility. And I think I would say that, you have to consider that a risk, and you have to be prepared for the risks of, it could be like a data breach, or it could be just an availability issue where, for example, some data is not available for a long while. So from a business point of view, you do need to take that into account. However, at the same time, there are lots and lots of eyes on these public platforms and cloud platforms, and they're often getting better and better at making sure the platforms and the features are secure. So personally, based on, to be honest, when we assess our clients' environments, it's way more common to find simple misconfigurations in the client organizations or implementation flaws in customized features than it is to find a huge vulnerability affecting the platform. And often if a huge vulnerability is found and published, then it will usually make big news. So also making sure that you do follow the security news and react to any issues that arise is important. But from let's say from mid-size enterprise point of view, I would basically maybe more be worried about my own organization and the settings and the users and the developers and the security maturity of vendors and security maturity of everyone than maybe the platform itself. It's a very political answer, but I hope you catch my drift.
Thank you. What about you, Banka? What is your opinion on it?
Yeah, well, the cloud is future, or already it has become the present. So along with the thinking about should you trust the cloud, it's also need of the hour. So yeah, I mean trust could have different definitions there, but definitely if you trust and go ahead, there are also a lot of different things that the cloud platform providers, they will provide you to give you information about the platform. Like for example, if we talk specifically for Salesforce, there are quite a few built-in tools to analyze your security aspects. For example, if you have external website, there would be portal health checks in your security, inside your setup in your Salesforce environment. There are also a few good features like Salesforce Optimizer. They highlight you, if your custom development is going in any wrong direction, trying to hit a limit or trying to be vulnerable. So we can use these kind of tools inbuilt, and also at the same time we should maybe look for some external tools to gain more trust on the cloud platforms.
Thank you. So Dima, do you have anything to add on?
Yeah, well, basically I agree with Antti, because cloud platforms are inherently secure. Maybe in the beginning of this cloudification trend, we were a bit like doubtful and suspective about the cloud environments, whether they are secure. But we are actually like living and using clouds like already for many years. So, and cloud providers, of course, they invest a lot of like money, resources, and efforts to protect their infrastructure, underlying operating system. Even if you are using cloud platforms like AWS, Azure, most likely you are leaning towards the managed services. So you are not basically dealing with the virtual machines where you need to patch your operating system or runtimes or applications. So that way, I would say that, yeah, you can trust the cloud platforms, but nevertheless, maybe repeating myself, that the cloud security is actually shared responsibility. So certain areas, they actually responsibility of the customer, and the cloud provider can't unfortunately help you with that. So basically, you as a customer using any cloud platform, Salesforce, AWS, Azure, so you are fully or partially responsible, at least for the entity management, access control, configuration, which is like Antti said, that yeah, the platform might be as secure as it's configured. You definitely need to monitor your environment and also monitor at least what the vendor actually provides. Absolutely, if you're sharing the data through the cloud platform, you need to make sure that you have content security. And then again, if you are using some third-party software within the cloud, or you build your customization, then you need to make sure that your supply chain is actually like secure. And well, as a famous saying goes, trust but verify. So this goes pretty well with the supply chain.
Right.
Yeah,
thank you.
definitely. And one of the things that I wanted to add to what Dima was saying, that definitely, like, I think nowadays, maybe one of the biggest reasons for companies to choose not to use cloud-based platforms anymore would be basically, data residency, that, this data needs to reside within EU, or this data absolutely needs to reside within Finland or within Japan or whatever your country is. And that is a very valid reason. But if you don't have that kind of reason behind there, then I think the next question that most companies would be asking is like, are we able to, better protect the whole environment, all the servers, patch everything, change all the hard drives and so on. So it comes back to this, the question of, which one is actually more reliable.
Mm-hmm.
So, but we do see the cloud environments getting more and more popular. So I think that's, that's the direction that most companies are going into.
Thank you. It's interesting to know the shared responsibility and the end user actually do need to like protect their own environment related to the content and stuff. All right, so let's check the poll results. Okay. Wow, so basically more than 80% of the audience thinks their data, the security of the data in the Salesforce are business critical. Of course, when Salesforce is a CRM and also many business process, many things go to Salesforce. So what do you think about it, Dima?
Yeah, I'm not surprised, and actually it's a good responses. So that yes, indeed, Salesforce as a CRM or maybe as a part of like the business is business critical, and definitely you need to protect it and put all efforts to secure like supply chain, the data, and then any connections to or from Salesforce. So it's good to see that at least most respondents actually treat it as very important or business critical. So it's actually a top priority for IT and then CISO professionals.
Great. All right, time flies. So let's move to our last poll and discussion topic. And again, thank you for all the audience being so active in the poll. I think we can explore so many together, see how, like everyone think, and we can further discuss on the Q&A later. All right, the next discussion question will be, which security problems do you see Salesforce team struggle with? So Andy, any comment on this?
Actually, I would like to pass the ball to Pankaj first, being a Salesforce developer. Like what are the things that you have found hard from a security point of view, from your point of view?
All right, yeah. At least when we talk about security, inside Salesforce, the core, it boils down to the data access, right? So most of the problem that we see, or that we not usually see, but we get reported for is like, so somebody's having wrong data access, like more data access, or so somebody did already modified the records which they are not supposed to, and then that hampers the business somewhere. So data access is I would say the real struggle, where we don't see it in the initial points because we are in the project we are developing something, we are not interacting with the data, or we don't have live data. It happens when the users are there and using it, and then we see the problem. So my only advice here will be to make the foundation very strong and try to follow the best practices from Salesforce. For example, they say think about the data access for a most restrictive person in your org, and then design accordingly, because there are many avenues to open up the access, but you should close you should have the funnel close at the starting point.
I want to piggyback on that one, and a lot of the client organizations that we review from a security point of view and do consulting on, there are some ones that are fairly new and are fairly like well maintained and are not spiraling out of control. But on the other hand, there are very many organizations that have been using Salesforce for over 10 years, 15 years, and so on. And first of all, it was supposed to be like, for one region, and then other regions also wanted in, and other business units and other companies, and then they've had mergers and demergers and everything. And at some point, they just realized that we have something that was supposed to be a proof of concept, but is now, basically snowballed into this huge thing that, that all of our data is in. And nobody no longer knows what the sharing rules are, whether they're correct or not. So definitely that sounds like one of the big struggles that we've also heard from our clients. And also to add to that, like personally, one of the other things that a lot of our clients contact us about is because the platform is also evolving. There's a lot of features, so making sure that with our current configuration, are we actually secure? And considering that, are there some things that we have not taken properly into account? So just being aware of all the features and all the settings and their effect and so on is also one of the things that we often see some of our clients struggle with, unless you have a very dedicated and big enough internal development team for Salesforce.
Good to know. Thank you, Antti. So Dima, do you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, maybe I will add a couple of points, what we hear from customers that we protect, and especially in the beginning when they actually find our solution, and we ask them about like top concerns they have, in addition to those problems that any Salesforce organization will encounter with configurations and probably over-receive privileges and all data they have. On top of that, there are even like basic security problems that every organization is actually trying to handle on endpoint, on the gateway server level, and in the other clouds. It's actually about the data breaches, and then also protecting the environments from the malware, ransomware, and phishing. Salesforce, unfortunately, is not fully kind of closed environment. It's also open for different type of attacks. And then, of course, surprisingly, that quite many organizations are not aware that, of course, there is no like antivirus in Salesforce. So then when you actually like share structured or unstructured data, and especially with external parties, whether it would be your partners or customers, then you expose the risk that some malware, ransomware will be actually like spread through the Salesforce platform, which might actually damage your reputation as a vendor. And needless to say that customers are also aware of the problem with the security management of the third parties and vulnerabilities in those components or even in the platform. So those problems are, how to say, they are not unique. So they apply, of course, to any computer system. But when they actually go to the cloud, then it's actually about the scale, and that if there is a risk, and then if there is a vulnerability that can be exploited probably by really advanced attackers. So you probably are not dealing with like kiddies who were writing like very basic malware. So the attackers are definitely after the data. So they have really clear objectives and ambitions. And Salesforce platform might not be under attack as itself, but it might be actually a stepping stone. And then the attackers will be able at least to get into your organizations and then move forward to the other systems after the more valuable data.
Yeah, thank you, Dima. Yeah, it's really
So
good.
I guess like service, like customers using Service Cloud especially would get a lot of inquiries from customers, and you can't guarantee that all those inquiries are completely benign, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because if you allow external users to connect and submit data to your Salesforce environment, whether it would be from email to case, web to case, or any other kind of channels that the Salesforce platform provides, what I would basically say it is, of course, not zero trust kind of concept, but basically external user can be anyone, including the bad actor. So you need to be ready for that.
Yeah, it's really good you point out the external user, because Salesforce is not like a CRM, like internal anymore. It's like many automations, like from the public, B2B, B2C, or partners, community. So everything can pose a risk to the Salesforce organizations. Great. Maybe let's go to check the last poll result. Right. So we have nearly half of the audience. They think that they will only perform security review and testing when it is necessary. So Andy, I know that you have been testing a lot of different challenging environments. And what do you think about this result?
Yeah, this very much aligns with what we are also seeing, when we talk with our clients. And one of the kind of the challenges that many organizations have is that somehow some organizations kind of see the Salesforce as more of a CRM thing and not necessarily an IT thing. And as such, it sometimes kind of, happens to go past the whole like security team or the security processes, because it's considered, it's a third-party platform, it's supposed to be secure, whereas it's not always the case. And basically the two most common things that our clients reach out to us asking for help is, first of all, like they've already had some kind of a security incident or some kind of a breach, and they would like to make sure that, okay, are all of our settings secure, all of our sharing rules, all of our integrations, all of the custom sites that we developed. And the second part is helping them analyze all the release updates, changes to the platform, and make sure that the organization stays secure in the future as well. So I definitely am seeing companies going in the direction of doing testing when necessary or on a recurring basis, and that's very good, and I'm very happy about that, especially considering how most of you answered that all the information and data there is business critical.
Right. Thank you, Antti. So let's move on to the Q&A sections. We have a couple of questions from our audience. So the first one will be, in the case of organization having many different integrations, how would you recommend managing user profile used in integrations?
Can I start from a general perspective and then hand out to Pankaj for the details?
Of course.
Okay, so from a general perspective, what you would prefer to have is a dedicated kind of a machine account only for each integration. That way you're able to minimize the privileges and the data access for each integration. And also, if there happens to be some kind of a breach, then it will be very easy for you to just disable that one account or that one profile, or to investigate like which integration did this attack come from by looking at the logs. So that's the general idea. Pankaj, what about anything to add or details?
Yeah, I mean, also on the same lines, the short answer would be to keep it separate. It might not be possible to keep, separate integration profiles for every integration, but you can come up with a common set of access depending on your business needs. But definitely keep it separate so that you have the control over, controlling the specific integrations to maybe like a switch button on and off. Yeah, I think the keeping it separate is important. We have also seen some challenges of not keeping it separate, and somehow it goes with some external access. The other thing also, what Antti said, kind of a machine access is also important to think from the perspective of recent Salesforce releases, which is MFA, multi-factor authentication, which is mandated for all human kind of interactions from the UI. But when it comes to integration, when it goes through API and those kind of things, Salesforce, I think they have some plans to not implement the MFA for those. So this will also help you going forward. Maybe it would be a mandate for you in future.
Right, thanks for the sharing. We have a second question. So there are a lot of apps on App Exchange. How can we evaluate the risk of the app about cyber attack? So maybe Dima, you can comment on this when you are also developing an app in App Exchange.
Yeah, absolutely. So as an ISV partner of Salesforce, we definitely built our own application for App Exchange. And based, of course, on our experience and also what we see in the App Exchange, of course, the first recommendation is, of course, to carefully consider what the application is. Because Salesforce, for example, at least defines applications as native if they are fully running within the Salesforce platform. So they don't have any integration with external systems. So if you see that the application is really, really native, then it's probably more secure than the other type of application. So in App Exchange, you can see also applications which are called connected apps, which might be a bit misleading term, but it basically means that the app itself might be running outside of the Salesforce platform, but that it might connect to Salesforce organizations, and then you would definitely need to consider how this integration would be allowed, which kind of user profile you would create for that. Then you might, of course, see different, even hybrid way of applications. Some might be half native, half connected app. And in any case, you also need to verify who is the vendor. Even you go to the way that during the procurement process, you might ask to to prove any kind of certifications, would it be ISO, SOC 2, NIST, so that you would also see that the vendor actually follows the best security practices. And definitely, of course, first start validating the application, the sandbox environment, ask your vendor which data the application accesses in the Salesforce or which data probably like sent out from the Salesforce environment, so that you would see like full picture how the data actually flows within your environment.
Wow.
So long story short, you have to take into account everything, and it's not very easy, is it?
Very detailed considerations on plugging in an app, actually. All right, great. Considering the time, I think we are almost it. So thank you, everyone. We appreciate you being here and hope all of you get something useful from the webinar. Thanks again for joining us today, and we will see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much.